Alrighty, thank you so much for clicking on my newest video. As you can tell, it's definitely different content than what I normally put out, but I really wanted to give a more in-depth look at my life and a better introduction of myself. So as you can see, this is my Draw My Life video. I know these aren't done too often anymore, but figured it would be fun. But my story starts on December 29th of 1993. I was born at 30 weeks, so I was actually 10 weeks old, and Dalton and I did the conversion. I was actually less than 3 pounds at birth, so pretty small. But I was born in Seoul, South Korea. I do know some information on both my birth father and my birth mother. Obvious reasons, I'm not going to share all of it, but I will share a little bit here and there. I do know that my birth mother was pretty young when she had me. There was an age gap between my parents. They didn't really say if my birth father knew about me or not, but I do know they weren't together when she had me. She actually had to take care of her younger siblings and her mother. I believe her father passed away a few years before I was born, so just due to her circumstances, she figured putting me up for adoption was going to give me my best life possible. Per records, I believe she had me for about 2 days before the orphanage took over my care. Now, due to me being a premature baby, I'm not quite sure the timeline, but I do know that the orphanage decided to put me with a foster mother instead of just staying at the orphanage. Just because of my health issues, they figured more constant care is the best outcome for me. So during my adoption phase, I actually had a foster mother. But as my story continues, when I was about 7 months old, they actually completed all of my adoption work, and I was put on a plane with a lady with the adoption agency and actually another baby who was being adopted. And they flew us from Seoul, South Korea, all the way to Chicago, Illinois. So when I was adopted by the McCarty family. So it consists of my father, John, my mother, Jane, and my big sister, Katie. So, she was super excited to have a little sibling, and, obviously everybody was super happy. So they did the drive from Chicago, Illinois to my hometown, which is Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my name because it did change, and I think it's kind of interesting. So in Korea, my name was Kim Adoram. Story about that is Kim was actually my birth mother's maiden name, so the orphanage decided to use that as part of my name, and then I'm not sure where Adoram came from, but it actually means beautiful girl, which I really like. That my adoption paperwork, gave me the definition of my name. I think it's pretty unique. But I mean, obviously, when my parents adopted me, they wanted to change my name, so they changed it to Nina Adoram McCarty. So they kept, one of my names because it was unique and it was part of my story. Which is funny because Nina, means girl, means strong, and it means force. So it kind of tied into what now was my middle name, Adoram. I, had a pretty normal life growing up. Talking about from when I was a baby all the way to like elementary school. Only thing is I actually had a lot of health issues due to me being a premature baby. I had a lot of seizures growing up, and I had like heart murmurs, I had a lot of brain scans, so growing up I was in and out of the doctor pretty frequently. But as I got older, they actually had me take these gross little pink pills that literally tasted like chalk. But it actually helped prevent my seizures. So as I was growing up, that really helped. But of course, really disgusting. Nobody wants to take those. But yeah, as I said, I pretty much had a pretty normal life despite having all of the health issues that I did. When I was growing up, I played a lot of soccer. Yikes, that is not a very good soccer ball, but you get the picture. I also did a lot of golfing growing up. I honestly cannot remember when I started. Literally feels like I've been golfing since I could walk. But golfing still holds, a special place in my heart because it's something that my dad, John, and I really bonded over. It was something that we could do together, and we still do that today. Whenever we get the chance, we'll go to the little 3-part golf course by his home. But growing up, I also played piano and I played violin. But of course, both of those kind of phase out of my life like soccer did. But, golf is still a big part of my life today. The next, big event in my life is actually from first grade. Growing up, my parents were really wanting me to learn about my Korean culture. They had me in Korean lessons where you learned the language and about the culture, but they actually figured that getting an exchange student would help further my knowledge for my Korean background. And so we wound up getting Yoon, who was our exchange sister. We actually had a really good connection. I think it helped that she was there to kind of tell me about my culture. I don't really know exactly how long she was with us. I think it was at least a year. But I learned a lot from her. I actually had my first public bus experience with her, which was kind of funny. But of course, she eventually had to go home, and I was really sad. But, through email and letters, we were able to stay in contact. Even today, my dad and Yoon still send emails back and forth. She'll send emails, pictures of her family, and it's absolutely wonderful to still have, my exchange sister in my life. The next big event in my life actually happened when I was in 4th grade. Not going to go into too much depth, but just enough. This happened when I was 10 years old, which, is still pretty young, but I wound up losing my mother, Jane, to cancer. It was her second battle with cancer, and, her body just couldn't take it anymore, and God decided to bring her back home. It was a really big event in our lives, and, it's obviously not something that I'll ever forget. It's something that still affects me to this day, but I'm just glad that, she wasn't in pain anymore. But obviously I don't want to go too in depth about it, but, obviously that's a really big event in my life. But after that, it was just, myself, my sister Katie, and my dad. Obviously we were all really sad about losing my mom because she was such a positive light in everybody's lives. But, we had to move on. I will say, though, that I admire my father so much during this time. Like, looking back, I can see, everything that he had to go through, but he never really let it show to his kids. He was always strong. He was always there for us no matter what. Cancer sucks. My next big event is actually going to be between 5th and 6th grade. Now, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. My father actually took my older sister Katie and I to South Korea. He wound up finding a program where adopted kids and their family could go and tour and see South Korea. So we actually saw a bunch of different, locations in South Korea. We got immersed in the culture and the food, pretty much everything. It was, a wonderful experience, one that I will absolutely never forget. But what really was just wonderful was that we got to see my exchange sister Yoon again. And during this time, we actually met her parents in person, and actually her grandma was there as well. So that was, really great to finally meet her family besides us. So my next kind of big thing that happened in Korea was that my dad actually bought me a Korean traditional dress. And yes, that is my drawing of a dress. To this day, I still have that Korean traditional dress. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite things that I own. And one day I wish that I can possibly wear it another time. Another event that happened in Korea, which still makes me laugh to this day, it's one of my all-time favorite memories, is my dad actually took my exchange sister Yoon, my sister Katie, and I out to dinner. And, being my dad, he was like, well, I'm going to pay, because to him, these are his 3 daughters. Even though Yoon isn't his actual daughter, she's his exchange daughter. So the funny thing is they literally raced each other up to the cashier. I mean, they both ran, which I think is so funny. Yoon actually pushed my dad out of the way just so that she could pay. And everybody was so shocked, even the cashier, but she still took Yoon's money. To this day, I still laugh about it. I bet if I reminded my sister, she would still laugh. But I think mostly my dad was just shocked that that even happened. But after that, the next event that happened in my life would be that my dad actually got remarried. He remarried a woman that we knew. She was a family friend. She actually had 2 young boys from a previous marriage. So, our family grew by 3. It was no longer just, Katie, myself, and my dad. We had a new family. So it was, us 3, and then my new stepmom and my 2 little stepbrothers. Family grew. It was definitely a change, but we still got to, experience new family events with the 6 of us. Although eventually, my sister, she actually graduated high school early, and she decided to, kind of live her life. And as happy as I was for her, we were pretty close at this time, so I was really sad to see her go. But obviously, she now had to go figure out who she was as an adult. But after a while, I think it was maybe about 5 or 6 years, my stepmom and my dad actually wound up getting a divorce. It was actually pretty hard on me. I didn't fully understand what was happening, even though I was, it was either a junior or a senior in high school. But other than that, my life from high school to college was pretty normal. I actually decided to move from Wisconsin and move to the Twin Cities in Minnesota for college. I attended the University of St. Thomas, which is actually right in St. Paul. Pretty normal college life. I actually met 2 of my best friends, as you can see here. I met Lindsay my freshman year of college. We actually were in the dorms together. And then I met Shandy, I believe it was my sophomore year of college. To this day, I still talk to those 2. Definitely going to be lifelong friends. Like I said, college was pretty typical for me. I had 2 different jobs throughout college. Freshman year and sophomore year, I actually worked for a science professor. So I would actually prep his labs for him, which was pretty cool. I got to do a bunch of different things. But also sophomore year, I started working at a family-ran restaurant. And I kept working there even after college. So, I was a server, I served food, I made espresso drinks. But it was really nice because it was a smaller family-ran restaurant, so it was very personable and a very loving environment. One of my favorite jobs, probably will be for my life. I was really sad to have to leave there. But yeah, great food. It was great. After that, I'm going to tell you a little bit more. It's actually a story of how I met Dalton. So this was sophomore year, and I was actually Skyping with my best friend Ace. I actually knew him since 7th grade. So at this point, we were friends for so long. He, was there for me for a lot of my life. And it was funny, that night, Dalton and a bunch of his buddies actually barged into my Skype call. And they just stayed there, just casually, But it was fine. We wound up having a really good time. And I believe it was for maybe about a year, every day after that night, Dalton and I talked. So, our friendship grew very strong because, really all we could do was talk. But it kind of helped that, he was friends with Ace as well. I wouldn't trust, I wouldn't assume Ace would introduce me to somebody who was going to be a bad influence. But actually that is kind of where our story starts. I was over in the United States, obviously. Haven't really been a whole lot of other places. But Dalton was actually stationed over in Japan when we first started dating. Now, of course, this is a little bit of a different, start of a story. But, that's fine with me. We were just kind of seeing where it went. Because at this point, we were friends for almost a year. We knew each other pretty well. It was just kind of, we'll see how it goes. It was a lot of letters, a lot of care packages, a lot of nightly Skype calls if we could. And from there, our love just kind of blossomed and we just kind of knew that it was right. I think it was about 10 months into our relationship, Dalton actually got the chance to go on leave. So I, packed up my things. I flew down to Indiana to finally meet him in person. So yes, at 10 months was the first time we actually met in person. But not only that, in the same day I was meeting his whole entire family. Like I said, Dalton is the oldest of 5, so I was meeting his 4 siblings, all of his grandparents that are in town, and his parents. But, eventually he had to go back to Japan, and he was there for, I believe it was about 2 more years. So throughout that time, I think we maybe saw each other once or twice after that first meeting. But, we made it work. Still constant Skype calls, packages, everything. But then, of course, he eventually had to move back to the United States because he was now stationed in North Carolina, which, of course, made me so happy because that meant I could see him a lot more. We had a lot of great experiences, like the Marine Corps ball, and just being able to see each other a lot more. Eventually, Dalton got done with the Marine Corps, and, we talked about it for a while, and he decided that he wanted to, pack all of his things and move to Minnesota with me. So that was a really fun road trip that we got to do together, and we lived in the Twin Cities together for about 2, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was 3 years, something like that. But, we had a lot of good experiences in St. Paul together. We got to try a bunch of, different places. We got to meet a bunch of new friends. It was, a really good time together. But the biggest thing that we got to do together in the Twin Cities was that we got married. So on September 16th, 2017, that is when Dalton and I got married. We got married in St. Paul at a park, which was really nice. We were a little afraid about the weather, but it turned out to be great. It was just a really, small, nice wedding, and we were surrounded by everybody that we loved. We had family from out of town. We had friends. It was one of the best days of my life, and I bet he would say the same thing. After that, we actually decided to move back to Wisconsin. Dalton and I talked about it for a while, and it just seemed like the best option for us because, I wanted to be able to help out with my grandparents a lot more. since, you know, they were getting older. And also, you know, I just really missed my dad and my sister, just because we, you know, I do have a really good connection with both of them. Obviously, we were going to miss all of our friends and our family up in Minnesota, but Wisconsin just was calling our names. And actually, funny enough, Ace and his girlfriend Letty found our apartment for us, and we have been living here for almost 2 years now. I really don't see us moving anywhere in the time being, but yeah, that is my life up to today. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you listening to my life and getting through this video with me. Bye guys.